Welcome to Goldfish on Games and Cover Disc Face Off, where the discs are putting on the gloves to duke it out over November 1992. And the contestants are Amiga Power, Amiga Action and the One For Amiga. Fight! First up is Amiga Action, which over 2 discs gave us 3 demos and a PD title. And that starts off with a corker of a game, because it's Pinball Fantasies. And they only went and gave us Partyland as the demo table. Now if you've not seen my Fantasies Deluxe video, or the Amiga's answer to Pinball, then you might not know that this is one of the best tables in the game, and it was quite the step up from Pinball Dreams. The demo effectively gives you unlimited balls, but you are limited with how long you can play. Although that time limit is quite generous, so you can rack up quite a decent score if you're good enough. As this seems to be a near complete version of the table, as most of the tricks and objectives seem to be there. Though I think there might be a few missing, or at least they're harder to get in this version, but that also might be due to some of the bugs that I spotted, as the ball launcher will get stuck from time to time, and there was also a few graphical glitches as I was playing. But when that's the only bad thing I can say about a demo, you know it's a good one. The second game is the PD title Mamba Move, which has some music that I'm worried is going to get me a copyright strike. And the text and graphics do seem to be off slightly. The magazine mentions that this could look wrong on some Amigas, but to be honest, I've yet to find one that it actually looks right on. But let's ignore all that and check out the actual game, which turns out to be a variation on Snake. You go around eating apples that make you extend, but it will also reset your hunger meter, which you can see is that image of a snake that's slowly turning into a skeleton. Now surprisingly, there is actually a set goal, which is to eat a specific number of apples, which has been helpfully hidden by the snake. But when you eventually do hit that number, the exit square will show up, and then you have to move into it to go on to the next level. That will increase the number of apples you'll need to eat, as well as add new barriers for you to avoid. Now there are a few extras that will show up on the playfield. These might boost your length, reset the hunger meter, or even give you an extra life. But then there's the rocks that will block your way. And in one instance I actually had it blocking the exit, so how was I meant to finish the level? If the hunger meter turns into a skeleton, then what happens is the number of apples that you'll need to complete the level will increase. So it's not an instant death at least. And I think this is quite a fun little time waster. Just a shame the version that they included is a little broken. Moving on to the second disc, we find a demo for The Chaos Engine. The demo gives us the choice of playing single player or with a friend, but it doesn't give us the choice of our character. It's just the Brigand and the Gentleman, which will be assigned to the players in that order. And if you do select single player, then the computer will take over the second character. When in the level, you have to go around and activate the nodes, which you do by shooting them. And then you also have to shoot anything and everything that gets in your way. But the route isn't that simple, as you'll have to find keys that will unlock paths and ramps. And while this is just a single level demo, it is a custom one. And the fact it was made for the demo is quite cool, as it also allows you to experience a bit more of the later features, like weapon upgrades, or being able to collect quite a few of the special upgrades. Due to the fact they didn't allow you to select your character, they did include something a little extra, and that was an attract mode that shows off the selection screen, then goes on to play both characters, which is really cool. as I don't think the final game had this option.
Special activated.
Even if it does look like it's pushing the Amiga a little too far, as that slowdown does get quite bad.
Players saved.
And Action's final demo is Zool. We've covered this game before, and long-time viewers will know that I'm a bit of a fan, so any demo of this game will make me happy, even if it is just the first level of the game. Now Zool, if you've never played it, is a fast collect-em-up Euro platformer that in many ways is the peak of that style of game. We have lots of colour, lots of speed, and there's lots of things to collect. You have an energy blast for taking out those jelly foes, but you can also land on the non-spiky ones as well. Plus you have a punch that can break through walls and help you find secrets. And it seems that this is the second month in a row that we have the Zool rock music. I hadn't planned this, but it's just funny how these things happen. And of course, being Zool, it had to have the Chubba Chub branding as well, and it's right there on display for you to see in the demo as well. But I will say that this demo is quite hard for me to cover, as at the time this would have been great to play, but coming back to it after all those years and having to play this level every single time that I've played Zool, it does have me wishing that it was somewhat more unique. For our second magazine we have Amiga Power, which included a single disc that had 2 demos. The first is Doodlebug, our second platformer. But this one is a little closer to the Japanese style than Euro, even if it is a very bright and colourful one. As the goal is to just make it to the exit. There's some light puzzle solving to do to get there, but for the most part you're not forced to explore the map to try and find collectibles to then unlock it. As you can see, our bug has an attack that can only be triggered while jumping, so it can be a little fiddly to try and land it. The game's name is a play on the fact that you are playing as a bug, but you also have the ability to doodle, as you have 4 abilities, that when triggered sends out a pencil that will draw the item to activate it. This might be an umbrella, limited invincibility, or explosions. But that umbrella, it does mean that this game has fall damage. Quite hefty fall damage as well. And what's really nice about this demo is that it's the entire first world of the game. So that's a decent number of levels for you to play. That will take you underwater in a submarine. Well, that's if you can pay off the loan shark, that is. And eventually you can come up against the end of world boss. It's a nice enough looking platformer, but I'm not sure why there were Mega Drives everywhere. Maybe the developer was really hoping to get it on that console. But either way, it's a decent enough platformer for the Amiga. The second and last demo for Amiga Power is Metamorphosis, or as the game would be later shortened to, Morph. A game that I'm quite a bit of a fan of, and have covered it in its own video. This is a game where you have to transform, or morph, yourself into 4 different states: rubber, water, air, and metal. Each has their own abilities and weaknesses, such as metal will sink into liquids, but it can also bash through walls. Rubber can bounce, but it also can get pulled around by fans. You can see where this is going. Typically the goal of these levels would be to find a cog, as you've gained these abilities through a cog-powered teleporter, and then make it to the exit. But you have limits on the total number of times you can change, as well as how often you can go to each type, and that's all shown on the HUD. Now this level is actually one of the later sewer levels in the game, so you can expect it to be quite a tricky level. More so if you've never played this game before, and you might not know what it is you need to do. But if you do mess up, it still gives you that cheeky little message, then lets you get back into the action very quickly. So that's quite nice. It's a really fun little title, and it's interesting to see some of the art changes, as the various states that you can transform into got some work done to them before the game came out. There's also seems to be a missing cog from this level. I'm not sure if that was something they hadn't implemented yet, or if they just decided not to overload the player with too many things in the demo. And finally, we have the One For Amiga, that has 2 demos and 5 PD titles. The first demo is for one we've already seen, the Chaos Engine. So let's jump past it and go straight into the PD, as we have Flag Catcher. And get used to that music that's currently playing, as that will continue through the entire game, which actually turns out to be a lot more fun than it might look, as you have to try and find the flag that's hidden in the grid, and you have a limited number of moves to try and find it. Thankfully, this is not just a mostly empty grid, as there are a few things that will help or hinder you. Arrows give you an idea of where the flag is, though it might not be on the same line as the arrow, and a number tells you how far away the flag is from it. Between these, you should very quickly get an idea of where you need to go. But there's also bombs, and these will clear the screen of any hints that you've collected so far, so they can be quite annoying. But there's also a few other tiles that can help you as well, as they might give you bonus points or even extra moves. The levels themselves are randomised each time you play, so you can't just memorise it, you'll have to try and work it out each time, which is a nice challenge. And to be honest, this is a really fun little game. It's simple, but it really does work. The second PD title is Tank Attack, and I guess the font that it used was passed around quite a bit, as we spotted that in the last episode in the RSI Demo Maker. The game itself gives us the option of having up to 4 players, but all of them are human controlled. There is no single player game here for us, so the gameplay footage isn't going to be amazing. Each player gets their own coloured tank, with bullets to match. And I think it's quite obvious what it is you need to do. You need to shoot the other tanks. But what makes this more interesting is that the bullets bounce, which really makes some nice use of the level layouts, and comes more into play as you progress through the game, as the layouts change. On top of that, there's also various power-ups. I've not worked them all out as it's randomised, but I've seen ones that give you a multi-shot, or others that make you invisible. I can see this being a lot of fun with mates, but on its own, nah, it's not too good. Biplanes is next, and well, this is one we've seen previously. But it was a little while ago, and this could be a different version, so let's check it out again. But no, this seems to be exactly the same as what we played before. It's a one-on-one game where you can select between playing against the computer or a human, and you get 2 different difficulty modes that will pretty much smash you no matter what you pick. I'm pretty terrible at this game, as it's very easy to stall your plane, and if the AI gets up into the air before you, it then can really easily take you out. And it just becomes not that fun, and I found this really frustrating before, and my opinion hasn't changed since. It's not a game for me. The last PD for this disc is Bridge Ball. And it's a game that will just drop you right in. No explanations, no hints of what you need to do, it's just you and the game starting immediately. Well, as soon as the very slow fade finishes. And if you're anything like me, then you're gonna fail for the first few goes. because you don't get much time to work out what it is you need to do. But it turns out what you do need to do is to grab the pipes and then move them into place. The challenge comes from the fact that you can only move the pipes a set number of times, and you'll know this amount by the number that shows up when you actually pick it up. The colour has nothing to do with it at all. But this does mean that if you misplace a pipe just slightly, then you are typically screwed, as there's only just enough moves to finish the level. Now there are a few different types of platforms for you to work with. There's the basic ones that the ball will roll across, there's pipes that the ball will need to go into, and then on the later levels there's some that are fixed, that you can't move at all. But to be honest, I really didn't get that far with this game, because it is really quite difficult. And it really doesn't give you much time to go and explore the level and work out what it is you can and can't grab. I think there might be a decent game hidden here, but it really needed far more work before it was released, and definitely more work before it was put on a cover disc. And with that, we've come on to the final commercial demo for the episode, and it's Lionheart, which is, yes, you've guessed it, a game that I know about but haven't really played. Now this is a really lovely looking title, with some really nice backgrounds, which wasn't always the case on an Amiga 500 game. Gameplay wise though, it's sort of what you'd expect from a hack and slash style game. Holding the fire button and then tapping a direction will trigger various different attacks, and there's baddies that will keep spawning if you don't move. But where you're moving to is a very good question, as this is quite a large map, even in the demo, which can lead you to feel quite lost. More so when there seems to be multiple paths that you can take, and I'm not sure if there's a specific one you need to follow, or if you need to hit all of them to collect those little spinning gems. So far I've not actually managed to finish this one, as I tend to get killed by the spike traps, that result in the most extra death pose. Even though these type of games aren't my favourite, if I played this back in the day, it certainly would have made me interested in checking out the full thing. The last PD game is Revolution, and right from the start this is looking quite the polished title for an Amos game. The developers have clearly put a lot of effort into this one. Well, in almost all areas but one: instructions. If all you had was this game and no readme or magazine article, you might end up being extremely confused on what it is you need to do. But what you do need to do is this. First, touch one of those blue squares. That will charge it up. And while it's charged, you can then go out and collect the batteries. But while you're doing this, that charge will slowly deplete. So you might end up having to hit it a second time, or hit one of the other blue squares for you to then continue on to collect the rest of the batteries. But just collecting those is not enough for you to finish the level, as once that's done, you'll also have to make sure that both cubes are triggered at the same time. With that done, you'll then finally warp to the next level. And this is all against one of the most aggressive time limits I think we've seen so far in this series. There's barely enough time for you to do everything if you do it perfectly. Make any mistake or spend any length of time trying to work out what it is you need to do, and there is a very good chance that you will fail. So this is quite the tough little game. You also have to deal with controls that aren't the most responsive around, and that you'll have to learn about all the tile types on the fly, as there really isn't much time for you to hang around. Oh, and by the way, those aerial looking things, if you bump into them, they will sap your power, so you'll have to deal with time and energy. Now weirdly, the third and fourth level felt much easier. It really feels like they mixed the order of the levels around here. But even then, they could have started off with some very simple ones to get the idea across of what you needed to do. But nope, they had to drop you into quite a difficult one straight away. Overall, we have a game here that might be a little bit too hard for its own good. If they doubled the time limit and made those controls a touch more responsive, then I would have classed this as a real standout shareware game. But as it stands right now, it's just on the edge. With that, we've looked at all the offerings for this month, and it's time to give them a mark. And I have to say, I think they all did quite well this month. But in last place, I think it has to be Amiga Power. 2 great demos, but it was just 2 demos. Doodlebug might have been the longest one that we played, but the others I think were a little bit better. So in second place, I'm going to give this to the One For Amiga. It was a decent mix of not just great PD, but also some really good demos, but I don't think it was quite as good as Amiga Action, which gets the top spot. Pinball Fantasies, easily the demo of the episode. That and it having Chaos Engine and Zool, yep, that puts it over the edge for me. And if you think I got it right or wrong, or you have anything else to say, then you can let me know down in the comments. And until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was Utter Chaos, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thanks for getting to the end of this episode, I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then there's lots of cover disc episodes for you to check out. And while you're here, you could also fiddle with those buttons just down there, you know the ones I mean, as they're meant to really help the channel out. Or if you want to chat with me more, then join the Discord.